Okay, hello everyone. So this webinar I've been asked to do for the team here is called Assistive Technology to Support the Dyslexic Learner. Many of you are parents or teachers that support students with dyslexia. So I really wanted to kind of focus on some of these specific tools. We're very fortunate that in this day and age, there's so much out there already. It's just wonderful for all of our students to be able to access things naturally. And I just, I'm happy to share the information that I have with everyone. So a little bit about me. I am a special education teacher first. I graduated from the University of Connecticut, so I am a Husky. I graduated in 2003 with both my master's and my bachelor's, a 5-year master's program, and it was dual certification in special education and elementary education. I started teaching in a resource room environment. I was fortunate enough to, be certified in Orton Gillingham, Wilson Reading, Linda Mood Bell. I've had a lot of opportunities to work with students ranging from, specific learning disabilities, OHI, to complex learners and nonverbal students as well. So I've kind of been fortunate enough to run the gamut of that. One of the things that I've been doing, I'm also a mom. So the perspective on that, I think is important. I have 2 children. My oldest is what's considered twice exceptional. She is very bright, but she is her own worst enemy. So there's social emotional stuff. And a lot of her difficulties include executive functioning. She does have some dysgraphia, traits of dysgraphia as well. My youngest daughter has a syndrome called 22q deletion syndrome. She is a love, but she is very small, and with the 22q deletion syndrome, it affects speech primarily. She was nonverbal for a long time, but she does come from a long line of talkers, and now she is fully verbal with articulation issues. But for a while, she did use AAC. She is reading really well. Her math is tricky, and she does have difficulties with executive functioning and anxiety as well. So I became an assistive technology specialist partially just by being the more techie person in my district. We had a lot of funds from ARA back in 2008, and a lot of the iPads were purchased, and not really many people knew how to do that. So I ended up kind of taking that on, working with a lot of people. I went back to school through Southern. There's an adaptive technology program there, and I took classes there. I also studied and am now certified as an assistive technology professional through RESNA. So that is an assessment that you have to take, and CEUs, as well as direct contact hours with students or clients is how they define it. I'm also a lifelong learner. So I've always loved to learn. I've gone back. I have my administration certificate. I'm currently in my 6th year for administration. So I always want to learn. I think the biggest thing about assistive technology is that technology is changing every second of every day. I can guarantee you that something in this presentation that I've just completed is probably going to change by the end of the week, because that's how technology changes. And sometimes it's for the better. Sometimes, there are little glitches, but what's great is it's always improving. It's always evolving. You just have to maintain awareness of it and know where to look and who to access to find the information needed, because there's almost always things out there that can help everyone. One of the biggest things that I feel isn't shared in reading is students don't always, the first 2 years of their lives, they get to spend, the primary years are supposed to be learning to read. And then after usually about second, third grade, they're supposed to be reading to learn. Once they master decoding, they should be able to then decode context and take in text and learn from it. I love this quote from Kate DiCamillo: reading should not be presented to children as a chore or duty. It should be offered to them as a precious gift. Let me just push this out of the way. And I think that's really important. We want students to love reading. We want students to be able to not spend their time decoding text and using up all their energy trying to read the text, that they can't actually visualize what's happening and enjoy a story or comprehend what's happening in the text because of the labor that's put into it. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're all here today. So there's a couple of students, usually, there's 5 pillars of, reading: decoding, fluency, vocabulary comprehension, and phonemic awareness. And what we often see is those 5 pillars kind of meet almost into 2 camps. It's the decoding fluency, it's the comprehension. And usually the phonemic awareness falls into this decoding fluency. And the comprehension is usually, kind of grouped with vocabulary, being able to visualize stuff, being able to summarize, synthesize text. Now, what I'm going to focus on most today is really this decoding and fluency piece. I think it's important because this is often where the breakdown is with our dyslexic learners. Not that our students with dyslexia don't have comprehension issues, they can, but often their biggest struggle is breaking down text and, either encoding or decoding text to be able to access it at all. So I've kind of wanted to go through some tools today, and I know we have about 40 minutes left or something. So to go through, I want to give you guys time, but there's 4 tools that I want to go through that kind of can help with decoding and fluency. And the overall tools fit into some of these sections: text to speech. And what I want to say about text to speech, we're talking about text that is available, that is synthesized, computerized speech. So often there will be text on a computer and the computer will read that. There are audio files, which is underneath, which is usually human narration, and you will find those like Audible. Sometimes you go to your library website, so you can get MP3 files of audio. While they're there, that's great. But I did want to mention the difference between text to speech and audio. What I like about text to speech, particularly for our students with dyslexia, is it can have corresponding highlighting, so students can follow along with the text. What I also like about it is because the text is available, it's easier for note-taking. So I think that's great because students can do cut paste, they can highlight, they can take the notes directly than necessarily just having a human narration. There's also syllabification, which can help with, breaking things into syllables, and there's some visual tracking issues. So sometimes we have students who have oral reading fluency issues because they may have some difficulty with visual tracking or attention deficit, and that can cause them to have difficulty with tracking text. And then one of the other tools that's great is called optical character recognition. What that is, and sometimes we see it shortened as OCR, what it is it will actually recognize text in a picture. So sometimes you will see a picture of a sign, and there's software out there that will actually find letters within a picture and make that into text. And that's something that's important because a lot of teachers might just take a picture of a worksheet, but the computer can't recognize it without optical character recognition software. So I want to talk a little bit about text to speech, and this is what I'm talking about: synthesis, and when computer voices speak the text. This is important that students in this day and age get to know how to use text to speech. A lot of times the teachers will say, or the parents will say, sometimes students will say, the voice sounds robotic. It can, Usually that is dependent specifically on the device you are using. So a lot of our Microsoft devices, some of the default devices can be a little robotic. The newer Microsoft voices are actually very natural speaking. They often just are an extra download. Chrome OS has some pretty decent voices. Apple has some decent voices as well. So a lot of the text to speech, that voice is dependent on the device you're using, or you can purchase third-party softwares with nicer voices. I will say with the research I've done, I do a lot of assessments with students where I compare human narration and I compare text to speech, computerized speech. Students in this day and age, they're used to it. They get this all the time. They don't really show a difference. They actually prefer having the text to follow along than to necessarily have a human narration with them. So it really is dependent on the student, but most students I find do absolutely fine with the text to speech, and the benefit that that gives as far as note-taking is usually better overall. According to research, there's a lot on text to speech and what it says. This first study basically showed, readers scored higher on comprehension than their other, after 4 weeks, than their peers that were not using text to speech. The second one, at the secondary level, significant improvement in reading comprehension using speech synthesis tool. And the other two groups actually showed no improvement. And these were with secondary level students with literacy difficulties. The last one I'm just going to cite here was text to speech positively affected achievement, supporting the use as a translation resource for these students as well. Just move this out of the way. Thank you. So virtually all research studies that have gone through text to speech show that at least some benefit using text to speech to aid in reading outcomes. I have heard on times from parents, oh, I don't want it to be a crutch. I'm concerned that my child will not learn how to read if they use text to speech. And virtually all the research studies out there show that that's not true. I mean, I'm a big proponent of reading. You never throw the baby out with the bathwater. I will always say, reading needs to be explicitly taught. I'm a big proponent of that, and I will, be on my soapbox about that forever. But I want you to know that if there are ages that if students can't access text at all, they can't even move to that next level of comprehending the text. And I think it's very important that we still allow kids to be able to enjoy reading, to be able to take in content from reading, and to be able to be exposed to what their peers are learning. And they shouldn't be held back for decoding issues in that way. So on to some of the tools. What can we do now? Because it's out there. It's out there and it's free. These are all free tools. I'm not going to have any, I don't like to preach anything that's cost prohibitive unless it's something that I feel really is, the end all be all and worth it. And there are tools out there that are worth it, but there's a lot of really stuff that's easily accessible as universal design for everyone. The first one that I want to talk about is Bookshare. So what is Bookshare? Bookshare is free, accessible, educational media for students. So that's any student who has a disability that's considered a print disability is eligible. It asks, what are the qualifications? Basically, the 3 categories are, is blind, has a visual impairment or perceptual reading disability, which that's dyslexia, cannot be improved to give visual function substantially equivalent to that of a person with no such impairment, so is unable to read printed work substantially to the same degree as a person without an impairment or disability. So that's basically saying if they can't read like their peers read and standard text because of either their perceptual reading disability or visual impairment, they qualify as a print disability. The other students that qualify for a free accounts for Bookshare are students with physical disabilities. We see that students with CP, students who might have SMA, they cannot physically hold a book. Sometimes we have students with tremors that really cannot access a book, they can't turn pages, and they qualify for Bookshare. So what a person needs to do as far as to qualify, they just need to, the easiest way is to have the school set them up, but parents can easily do that themselves. They can go on Bookshare, they can sign up, and they would provide an IEP or a 504 plan, or a report by someone who is a qualified individual in order to access Bookshare books. And I'm going to show you just a little bit what that looks like here. So when you log into Bookshare, you log in, and it's nice because are you seeing the Bookshare screen?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. So when you log in, books are right here. You can actually go up here and you can search for a book. You know, we can search for Hatchet. That's a very common book that is on. You can type in an ISBN number. So there will be, you know, most textbooks, anything written after 2007 has to have a digital version created. That's the law. And so older books have also been put on here as well, just so you know. So it's not just after 2007, but textbooks and things that are used in school are almost always accessible. If they're not, they can actually request and be put on Bookshare. And they're actually, the turnaround can take months, but I find it's much faster, especially with newer books. So often you can just take a book, you find your book, and you can do a read now if you're a student logged in. So for example, this is a cute book. My daughter's been into Warriors. I'm just going to show you this example as a read now. What happens is it opens up right into the Bookshare web reader. And then you can hit settings. You can actually go to the settings, and in your settings, you can change this audio speed. You can have how the book looks, the color themes, change audio. So this is Microsoft Aria. It's one of the natural sounding Microsoft voices.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Okay, it's a pretty good sample, just so you can hear. You can have it speak page numbers. You can have it speak image descriptions for students who cannot see at all. You can change the text. So this is really where it's nice to change some of the spacing, and you can have it look, the font style could be the book default, or there's some other options for texts, which, you know, Comic Sans sometimes is nice because, you know, the A looks like a primary A that we see. You know, you can change how the pages look, and you can change the colors. So as it reads, you can actually hit play just to hear how it sounds.
Suddenly, without warning, a wide gray wing swept across the ray of starlight.
So it's a great, quick way to easily get free and accessible books to read for anything and enjoy pleasure. One of the tools that I like to do for Bookshare, when I talk about Bookshare, is my favorite tool to read Bookshare on is called Clusive. So Clusive is actually a website. It's a free website. Unfortunately, there's no longer funding for it, but it still works. It's just they aren't doing new. It's from UDL Cast. It's great for Bookshare, note taking, etc. What I really like about it, it's from the Center of Inclusive Software for Learning. So they want all students to be able to access all learning accommodations. So when you go to Clusive, you can try it as a guest. You can log in with Google. And I'm actually going to play this short demo just so you can see, because I feel like they explain it much better than I can.
Clusive, a customizable learning environment that adapts to you, to me, to everybody. When I get into Clusive, I can check out my recent activity, then head to the library to find something to read. In the library, I can choose from all readings my teacher has assigned, or readings I've uploaded myself. Here's an article on sports and grades. Based on how well I know the words, Clusive makes a recommendation for a challenge level that's just right for me. But I can always change that. I really like sports, so I'm going to switch to the most challenging level. But if I didn't get enough sleep last night, I might have switched to an easier version. I can try out different settings and tools to learn what works best for me. And I can use the word lookup and read aloud tools that help me to get through the reading.
Affect. Verb, to make a difference or have an impact on.
Clusive adjusts to me based on what I do and what I prefer. As you use Clusive, you'll learn more about your strengths and where you can build skills to make choices that work best for you. And the more it can help you to see what you're doing, what you're learning, and how you are reacting to different readings and topics.
There are lots of features for teachers and parents too. You can
I'm going to pause on the teachers because we'll discuss that later. But I wanted you to be able to see how Clusive works. You can sign in straight with Google. So I have a sign in right here. And then I can do upload a new reading. I can do library. If I go to my library, and there are tons of resources that will tell you every step of the way how to use it. If you go to the library, what I like is you can upload a new reading. If you have a Bookshare account, an individual Bookshare account, you also will have, if you are in all readings or my readings actually, on the uploaded readings, you will see a tab here for add from Bookshare. And it's the same thing. If you click on add from Bookshare, you just type in the book you're looking for and you can do that. In this case, I will upload a new reading. I'm actually going to upload a file directly because you can, I'm going to browse and I'm going to go directly from my desktop. And I'm actually going to hit this one. So I'll do Rising Storm again. And what you will see is it will automatically add the title, the author, it has a picture, image, you can even change the image if it's something else, and then usually you have to hit fiction, and then you can change there and you can add to uploaded readings, and that will absolutely do that. Because I have that on there, I'm not going to do that again, but when you select it, it will take you, it actually uses AI to go through the book and find words that might be difficult. So you can go through and say, you know, heard it, next, use it, next, know it, or maybe never heard of it, or you can skip it and go straight to the article. It does have the nice pictures. You can change your settings like I showed you how to change it before. Display settings, reading settings. You can even have an open dyslexic font if you prefer that, or Comic Sans, or whatever you're used to. The spacing can be larger, or the font size can be bigger as well. And then there's reading tools where you can change the voice, and it will even translate to a whole new language. This is great if, you know, students are learning another language as well. Then the reason I like this as opposed to just using the Bookshare web reader is because when you go through, and I'm actually going to go straight to like a chapter 1. Not only does it look nice for the book, but if you have something you want to annotate, right here, here's your highlighting tool. You can sit there, it adds a little highlight, and you can add a note. So for students that need something, this is their note, and they can add what they think about this. You know. There we go, spell check, and you can hit done. So right now you will have all your notes, you have your contacts, and you have all your notes. This is great. The other thing you can do is you can actually, if there's one word that you happen to have that you're not really sure, you can look at, let's see, we want to use this word, affection, or actually ravine. Let's look at ravine. We can do a word lookup. And in the word lookup, it will give you a word. It tells you what it is. You can play everything, and you can even add it to your word bank. So it just gives you an additional support right there. Students can also say, do I like this? How am I feeling about this right now? So that helps with our metacognition. It's a great tool, and you can have everything in one spot. You can also upload other ebooks or Word documents as well.
Maybe a quick question there. Can you print out those notes or annotations?
You know what? I don't know that I've ever tried it because I like to keep everything digital. I mean, I know that at a minimum you'd be able to screenshot it. I can't imagine that you probably wouldn't be able to find a way to do that, but I don't know right now. I can get back to the team on that.
Thank you.
All right. I tend to not do a lot of paper stuff because my executive functioning is very bad. So if anything, what I do is I usually like screen print stuff and send it to OneNote. That's how I kind of keep organized. So on to my favorite tool is something called Immersive Reader. If you don't have a Microsoft account, I would absolutely recommend it. Microsoft's tools are wonderful. The Immersive Reader is just one of the read aloud tools available. It's available on all the Microsoft tools. It's also available in some of their partners. So BrainPop, Canvas, Discovery Ed, It's Learning. I mean, there's a list of about 100 different things. I just put some of the most common ones that are used in schools: Wakelet, Schoology, PowerSchool. So these are all tools that have Immersive Reader that coincide with it and allow students to use the Immersive Reader tool to help access text. So what is Immersive Reader, you ask? I'm going to demonstrate it right here. So thanks. So here's the pop-up. I'm just going to hit that one. I want to X out. So here's a pop-up. It's just a world encyclopedia, and it's through Britannica. What you will see, I don't know if my tool's in the way, but what you can see, right, I just want to shut this down, is up on this browser, you can actually see there's two tools. One is this A, and that's just a read aloud. It will read aloud the page. But the other one is this called Immersive Reader. It's like, looks like a little book. And what this does, if you click on it, this is already built into the Edge browser. So the Microsoft Edge browser, which you can have on Chromebooks, you can have on Windows devices, you can have on iPads. It's a browsing tool. What it does, it automatically will put the website you're on into something more readable. It removes distracting ads, it removes extraneous links. Anything that's related to the article still remains. So the links that relate to the article remain, the pictures that relate to the article remain. You can change text preferences here, and you can also change some reading preferences, which is nice because some students might want line focus or maybe just a paragraph. So as you read, it goes through. And then the read aloud.
New England colonies. The New England colonies were the settlements established by English religious dissenters along the coast of the northeast of North America between 1620 to 1640 CE.
So that's very helpful for students. It's built in, it's there, it's in the browser. They don't have to feel separate than their friends because it's already there. It's a tool they're already using. What I like, it can also use it. Immersive Reader is available on PDFs. So if you open this PDF, this one's about New England colonies. Not only can you read aloud, the PDF reader automatically
New
will
England
read aloud.
colonies. Colonial America articles. Article 41630.
The Edge browser can, once the read aloud is done, the Edge browser actually can not only do the read aloud, but you can even draw on text. So you could highlight right within the PDFs. You can draw on top of it. Often we see math, math worksheets. There's word problems. They're not always accessible. How do I get this accessible for my child? It's very important because this way they can at least have the math read to them and they can do the great math work that they do, but they don't necessarily have difficulties with reading the words. So these are just awesome ways to do it right into the Edge browser, and then it could be print, saved, or sent to their Google Drive as well. So I really do prefer using a lot of the Immersive Reader tools. They're very helpful. They can support students in multiple ways. And I think Microsoft has gone a long way in using these tools. The last tool I'd like to talk about is the only tool that's actually device specific. Most of the tools, all the other ones can be on any devices. They're considered device agnostic. So even though Immersive Reader is designed, for Windows type tools, because it's Microsoft, they actually are available on all different devices. The Seeing AI app was developed originally through Microsoft Garage, but what it's nice is this is available. It's a free app available for iOS, which means it's available on your phones. It's available on your iPads. It was originally designed for the vision impaired population. So the tools that we're going to go through, there's more tools. It can actually identify people, money, barcodes. It'll scan that. But what's important about that is, I don't want to get into that now because we can use it for reading. What I love to use this tool for is for reading on the fly. We have students, sometimes they go out and they can't read the menus with their friends. Or, there's something that they need to read that's a handwritten note. These are all things that Seeing AI could do automatically, and I'm going to demonstrate that right here with you.
I'm going to open up my Seeing AI app. Now the default is
Short
You will
text.
notice it will be short text and it has the two little T's on it. All you have to do is hold it over.
The little pilgrim looked through
And you
his
will notice that
spyglassy.
it
He
starts
saw
reading.
something sitting next to the gopher hole. I never really liked turkey. The little pilgrim said, we want a turkey for Thanksgiving dinner. Well, the big pilgrim said, Mother wants a turkey. Short, he saw something
And if you
sitting next
stop
to the
that,
gopher hole. We
that'll
want a
automatically
document.
Stop the short text. So all you have to do is hold over the text button and it will automatically read anything we have. What's also nice is it can also read handwritten documents as well. So if you have something that happens to have a handwritten document, you can, such as this letter, you can actually
Short text.
short text.
Dear Molly, I hope you are enjoying your summer. It sure has been a hot one. I am looking forward to the first day of school and I hope you are too. Your first assignment is to bring in something about yourself to share with the class. I can't wait to meet you. Mrs. Ster. Document.
Okay, so that's really a great way, just if you're on the fly and have difficulty reading, if parents give a work, if you get a worksheet comes home, it could be a little difficult to read. If you're too tired one day to do a whole amount of text, just hold your phone right over and it will read to you. I think this is great for, short bits at a time. When you're out and about, we see some of our students with difficulties, they go to, have a job application and there's this application, they can't always read it in order to fill it out properly. Or, they might be out and about in the community and there's certain signs that might be hard to read or certain flyers out there that might be difficult to read. So it's great to kind of just have this available, just pop it out and anything's accessible.
I'm going to
Oh, actually, what I'd like to say is the other thing that this is really good with, I'm going to pause this right now.
We can do.
This is capturing text. So what's good about capturing text, I think is important. By using CI, you can actually, Seeing AI, you can actually take a picture of a document and send that text. So you can send that text to a Google Doc. And I'm going to show you how to do that.
With Seeing AI, which I really tend to like, is you can actually capture text. So we open your Seeing AI app, and I have this book about lot rabbits, and I have
Hold
a
steady.
button that says
Processing.
and it's processing the cover. We don't want that right now. It will actually tell you what the page is, but what we will do if we are adding a page, you can go through and I am going to find the
Bottom
save
and
here.
left edges not
Actually-
visible.
Actually hold it over. I will try
Hold steady.
hold steady.
Processing.
And as you can see, it will copy the entire text and it will allow it to then be played.
Holland Law, Netherlands Dwarf Law, History, in 1964.
What I like about this is a great way for students to capture text. If they're doing research, then they can have that text to be able to take notes, to annotate. This is also a good teacher tool to use if they need to kind of shorten some text for students. Kids who are taking notes could then export this, and this can be exported to Google Docs, or it can be exported as share a text, or it can be shared as an image. So I think that's really important for students to be able to capture text if they need to be able to understand what's happening.
Okay, so I think that's really important, just showing that last bit, because often we have students, some of the big assignments are do research, show text evidence. This is a great way to like pop it into, a Google Doc or a Word document, and then you have your text evidence there, and you can also quote it. So those are the main tools that I think, are great just to let everyone know it's out there. And I think we are pretty much done. Is there questions and answers about any of the tools or any other types of things that might be difficult for children to access with reading?
I actually had a question. This is Jennifer. I can show
Yes.
my screen. And with the Seeing AI, how do you access that? Is it an app? I missed.
It's an app. All you do is go to the App Store.
App Store? Okay,
and
great.
it's Seeing AI, and you download it. And it's very simple.
Yep.
And then once you have it, you're just in and you're ready to go. It used to have, I don't believe it does anymore, but it used to be where you just logged in with a Microsoft account, because it was originally created through Microsoft Garage. I don't believe if they necessarily do that anymore, but it's a really great tool to capture text. So
Great.
for those of you, if you don't have a Microsoft account, it is free. I always recommend using it, because, signing up for one, because then you can use a lot of the tools such as Immersive Reader that is available in Word and everything else.
Mhm. Good. Those are all really helpful tools that I'm excited to try with my dyslexic learner. And do you find, I'm assuming they vary by age. So like with elementary school students, what tools do you see used most readily?
So I find that it really is more dependent on the activity than anything else. In my current district, we have actually a lot of assistive technology. We have, for example, Read and Write for Google district-wide. Our IT pays for it as part of like a universal design. But to be honest, I've said I wouldn't even bother doing that because of the Microsoft stuff out there. One of the things, if I could do a little tangent, sharing the in Word, if you actually go into a Microsoft Word, I just wanted to go into, this is in my way. Okay, I'm just going to open up a new document. All right, so here's this one. This is actually just like a description of the webinar that we were talking about. So if you go into where it says view in any Word document, and this is one that I love to do with students, my elementary students, is you have Immersive Reader. So you will have like an article or something, such as even one of the worksheets that we showed. But what Immersive Reader does, and you'll see it in words, is you can even break it into syllables. You click here. So it will go through and it'll break it into different syllables. As a teaching tool, I use that because sometimes we're teaching our students, we're doing Orton Gillingham, we're teaching them certain student syllable types, whether they're the stable LE types or, whether they're doing closed syllables, open syllables. So this actually will divide the words right into syllables. And you can go through and, they can check their work, or they can say, why is that an open syllable? Why is that a closed syllable? So as a teaching tool, I actually use Word a lot for that Immersive Reader piece.
Great. Thank you. That's another good tip. In our Q&A, we have, is the Immersive Reader already in Canvas, or is this something I should download in my daughter's Chromebook?
No, so in Canvas, when there's something that opens up in Canvas, they'll see that little book. And then clicking on that enables the Immersive Reader.
So Immersive Reader is already built into Canvas.
Yes, it's already like one of the partners. So I know that even like Brain Pop, if you go on a Brain Pop, you'll see that little book on top. And it's just, people are like, what's that little book? But if you click on it, that's the Immersive Reader tool.
Great. Okay, good. Another question, how can we get the school to allow the use of Bookshare? Is there something special we have to ask for?
So the schools allow Bookshare. I mean, Bookshare is accessible educational media, materials, accessible education materials. So on the IEP, one of the questions, it used to be on the old Connecticut IEP, it used to have, does your student have a print disability? It used to be in that like special factors page. And, often people would forget to click the box, but it's, if they have a dyslexia diagnosis, that should be clicked, and it's, there as accessible educational materials. For any student really with a dyslexia diagnosis, it's like a given. This in the new IEP, it's actually in the like supplementary aids and services, it's actually usually in like the first part where it says, does the student, it asks all the questions about the student. It says, does the student require accessible educational media materials? And the accessible education materials is considered, anything. Teachers will allow Bookshare. It's very simple. It's not something that costs them anything. It's easy, free way for schools to get the books for the students. So I've never had any schools say, oh no, we don't use Bookshare, don't want to use Bookshare. It's usually almost like a default. Sometimes the library media specialists are the ones set them up. Sometimes in my school district, some of our schools have the library media specialist do it. Sometimes they just call directly through me, just because then I will have the whole list of everyone in the district who has it. And I'll set it up, and then I'll just send parents the form to allow them to have a personal account, which means they can download their books independently. Otherwise, teachers really have to assign books to them. So it's much easier for, parents just to allow individual memberships so that the student can just download their own books.
Great, thank you. A question here. Any recommendations on best handheld device for digital reading for fun? So not always related to school Chromebook. We're in the market for a new personal purchase for kids. To timing of this webinar is perfect. Do these services require Wi-Fi or downloadable? So is there anything, maybe like maybe an iPad perhaps?
So I always say, I prefer to do things that are really device, agnostic, that can be used on anything. iPads, user-friendly, if you're like handheld, take a picture, things like that. iPhones are also user-friendly for that. If the student is going to be doing a lot of like typing and they need a lot of typing, I would recommend something like a Chromebook. I don't know that you need to, do something as cost prohibitive as a parent, as like an iPad, as a MacBook, or as like a Windows device, because a lot of tools are cloud-based. And yes, internet is something that you generally readily need across, even to access their assignments in these day and age. So usually I always say something should be internet capable. The one thing I would recommend, if I, like, as a parent, I bought my daughter a Chromebook, but I bought one that could flip into tablet mode. And what I liked about that is because I like that because it has the dual camera, so I could take a picture of worksheets if I needed to. And with the touch screen, you can draw on top and ink on top of it. So that was like the one caveat when I was buying my kids' devices. I bought them there was like a Lenovo 300. There's a couple Lenovos out there that are actually really good as far as Chrome devices that have the dual camera, and that can be used in tablet mode or regular mode with the touch screen.
Right.
And they're actually usually cheaper than an iPad, to be honest.
What about a Kindle too? I mean, I know that can be cost prohibitive, but for maybe reading for fun.
Yep. So Kindles are great. I mean, Kindles work out Kindles are good tools too to use. I mean, I think it's really about each individual student. If they're going to be doing schoolwork on it, you want something that's just going to, kind of be a little consistent with the schoolwork stuff. If it's just straight for reading, Kindles work great. Old phones work great. You don't need to get the newest thing. I would say make sure it is able to run the newest software just for upgrades, but you don't necessarily even need the newest thing.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yes, I have a question. So for the Bookshare and any of these tools that need to be listed on an IEP, what if your dyslexic learner does not have an IEP but has a 504? How would we go about
I'm gonna stop
requesting?
the share just for a second. I'm sorry, what? Is
Okay.
that good?
How would we go about requesting these tools and getting them approved? And also kind of a second question is, does the student need an assistive technology consult or evaluation to have these recommended in the 504 or IEP?
So the answer to your second question, no. I try to tell my teams, I'm not the gateway to the technology. The technology is out there. I'm a source for, all my teachers to kind of say, I'm stuck. What can I use? I don't know what to use. Is there a certain tool that might be better than this tool that I thought of? And usually I always think of the function, like I tell my teams, don't put a specific software as a request in an iPad because software changes on a dime. Like last year, Text Help and Don Johnson merged. So things change so quickly. But what you really want to capture in the 504 IEP is what the function of the software is. Is it a text reader? Does it have text to speech? Is it speech to text where the student is dictating to the computer? Is it a PDF editor? Means it can edit the PDF documents. Those are the things you want to capture in the 504. Any member of the team is a team member, and anyone who knows the student and knows about technology can consider assistive technology. So it's not like you have to pull in some AT person to come in and do it. You're all capable, competent members of the team. Parents, your child, reading specialists, they know about reading. And if the team feels the student requires text to speech, the team can recommend that. And I think that's just, I try to empower my teams that you are the expert in this kid. And you should, if sometimes I will ask just for my teams, if it's something that might be cost prohibitive where they need a device, I like to have an eval just so I know it's the right device for them, make sure I check their access skills, only because I have a different lens. Because there might be, and I kind of get to see programs all district wide. So I'll know, this one doesn't play with this program, some of that. But for the most part, the teams decide the accommodations that are needed, and they're documented in the accommodation page or in the supplemental aids and services page in the IEP, or in the 504s also as supplemental aids and services.
Great, thank you. Another question, Chromebook, Kara had asked previously in her follow-up, is Chromebook with tablet sounds better because it could use Immersive Reader, whereas it sounds like the iPad could not, but could download Seeing AI app, and she's wondering if that's right.
So the tablet can download Seeing AI app. The tablet, like an iPad, has a lot of their own accessibility features, like the camera app can actually do optical character recognition. The iBooks will do text to speech. So it really depends on what specific thing you want to do, but most tools can do all of these things, just sometimes they're called something different. Like it's called ease of access when you look at Windows. It's called accessibility when in iOS. It's called, the Chrome accessible features or something. It changes every day in Chrome. So it's not necessarily, it depends on what you do. I like Immersive Reader is available in Microsoft Edge. So Edge is available also on Chromebook, and it's available on Windows devices. It's available on a Mac. I'm using Edge on a Mac right now. I believe the Edge is downloaded on the browser on an iPad. So it's not something that's necessarily, you're locked into the device if that's what you want. Did that answer the question? I will say, if you want Seeing AI app, that is only available in the iOS. That is one of the iOS apps. There are alternative apps. Microsoft Lens will also do a capture, and I believe that's available on most devices.
Great, thank you. And dare I ask the difference between Bookshare and Learning Ally?
Yes. So, because this actually comes up a lot, Learning Ally is human narration. There are some newer books that are called like voice text files, and the books will have the human narration with like synced up text. I like Learning Ally, like the interface, it's pretty to use, it looks nice, but I find with like, I always like to think of Bookshare as like where you get all your books, and then like you have a streaming platform on what you can stream it on, like whether you watch a movie on Netflix or watch a movie on Hulu. So Bookshare is like you get all your digital ebooks, and then there's lots of different apps such as Clusive, such as your iBooks, such as Dolphin Reader that you can read the Bookshare books on. Whereas Learning Ally, most of the books are straight audio. There's the newer books that might have voice text, but the vast majority are straight audio books, which means you don't have the text along with it. So some students might be hearing the text and they have great audio, but then they have to follow along. If they're supposed to follow along, they need a hard copy book. That also makes it difficult for note taking because you don't have the text to actually cut and paste and pull out. So I will also find that most of my students, you know, I've bought Learning Ally in the past, they don't like it because they'll have that one voice that has an accent they don't like. That one, you know, oh, I don't like this book. I don't like the way this person who's hired to read that book reads it. So you're kind of stuck with the voice you have and the recording that you have. Whereas with the digital text, even though it may be slightly more robotic, because it is synthesized, you can actually adjust that. You can adjust the speed. You can adjust the type of voice as well.
Right. And then as parents, are there, and this is, I didn't ask you this one before, but are there any organizations or newsletters that maybe we could subscribe to that do share the latest and greatest for tech for students who have dyslexia? And I'm putting you on the spot, so if you think of it later, we can always add it in a follow-up email.
I will say there was and I can send you in the Microsoft has like a whole accessibility like group. A division, like a whole division devoted to accessibility and, you know, education, and you know, teachers can become Microsoft educators where they have a lot of this. And there's a link in there where they do, I think it was in my slide, Immersive Reader is the first one. I have to actually go through, it's in the, I believe the notes, but it has the account for research and using text to speech with research in Microsoft. That's a great one. I would recommend, that CAS UDL, Universal Design for Learning, that center is a great one to just kind of keep aware of. There's also really good Facebook groups. You can even just look up assistive technology Facebook groups. So they're usually the ones that I tend to, that'll pop up as I'm, you know, laying in bed at night and I'm like, oh, this is new. Oh, this is new.
Great. Thank you. And another question came through regarding private evaluations for assistive technology. Is that something that you offer? I
do not.
Okay. Do you know if they offer? Because we actually have encountered this question before, and I've done some research and I haven't been able to find a private evaluation.
So the only one, there's not very many out there. I will say there's very few of us. This is one of those markets that are tough to kind of keep up on because you constantly have to be kept on. I know there's someone named Shelley Lacey Castelot who does some private evals. There might be some private AT stuff. But other than like maybe, you know, helping out some friends and family every once in a while, I don't do private practice at this time. I have two special needs kids and I have a job, so it's one of those.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get that name from you and maybe share it with this particular participant who asked. I do find sometimes, you know, with the district, as you know, if you're with an IEP, you're waiting up to 45 days for a private AT eval. And I've seen that happen before, and then the child is just delayed those supports, right, when they could be implemented much more quickly. I've also seen the district outsource private evals to ACEs, right? So maybe that is an option if this person is delayed in getting an eval.
A lot of districts, if they don't have an on-person, you know, AT team or member, they often do to their local RESC, like CES, ACEs, CREC. Right. They will do those things. What I've said to, one of the things I've really worked hard with my current district is, you know, I would rather do a consult than an eval. And the reason being, unless, especially for students with dyslexia, like your, learning disabilities, there's so much stuff out there. I don't want to delay getting any student the resources that are out there. So I always say, we don't need an eval to get them. I mean, the team can recommend text to speech. That's a PPT decision or a 504 decision. You don't need to pull in some eval that'll then delay getting a student the tools they need. I usually would rather put that effort and time into as a consult to the team, because I feel like that's more important to teach the teachers how to use this stuff, teach, them how to make sure everything is accessible, because that's really often where we see some of the breakdown than just the access.
Well, Katie, can you clarify that quickly? And then we just have one more question and we'll close. But what is the difference between a child receiving a consult, an AT consult, or an AT eval?
So the way I do it is an evaluation is usually evaluative. It's to check the child's typing speed, to check their access skills. It's a full record review. It's often I may do some assessments such as what's called a PAR or DeCoste, and that'll tell like the type of reader they need. And while that can be informative, I'm not saying it's not, it's often not necessarily anything we didn't already know at the start of it. So, students with dyslexia have trouble with reading and have trouble with writing, and often text to speech and speech to text and word prediction are very helpful. So I would rather say, look, I think this child would benefit from X, but let me do a consult. And usually the consult isn't necessarily just for the student. I will see the student maybe if he's already with that teacher, but the consult's for the team, because they're the ones who are the teachers and need to know how to implement it with the student. I'd rather not pull a kid out of their time, their instructional time that they're already struggling with, to check typing speed, when we could give them the tool and work with the team on implementing it appropriately. And I think that's really more valuable and important to the student, or to the families. It doesn't impact their time with non-disabled peers, which is a big thing for me. It's like, I don't want to be pulling them away from their time without disabled peers, if I don't have to.
Understood. And one more question. This is specific, I think, to Connecticut as a follow-up, but if it's just a consult, is it under the same guidelines? Is that like you have 45 days, like a district has? So is there any time frame around a consult versus an eval under an IEP?
Even the eval is technically not a consult. The 45 days is on initial evaluation, and that's the requirement for qualifications. So it's not like assistive technology eval is a qualifying services. It's not, if anything, it's a supplementary aid and service, or, if it's working with the team, it could be a service, but it's not. It wouldn't be a direct service. So there really isn't a timeline on that. And usually we need goals and objectives. The state guidelines say you need goals and objectives to kind of work off. So it really even shouldn't be as part of initial or triennial. So while there's no timeline on it, like a consult is obviously usually faster.
Yes.
There's no timeline on it. There's also not necessary permission, because we're not pulling the child out of their time, non-disabled peers. It's for the staff. But often for being in the realm of being transparent and open with my teams, I always do a write-up, and I want to make sure that I communicate to teams, families, that that when we consulted, these are some of the tools we talked about, just so everyone's kind of on the same page, and that people then have an instruction manual on, oh, this is what we talked about, and oh, this is how it could be used, because like today, I'm giving a lot of information out, but that could be very hard. You can leave and forget if there's not something to refer to. So
great. Thank you, Katie, for that thorough answer. Last question as we close out. I'm interested in learning about how you move kids through these digital services. They learn and grow. The accessibility factor is huge and wonderful and necessary. However, how does it impact the learning curve in gaining tools in the tool belt for the child? And then lastly, basically, is it important to use digital reading support split with hard copy reading, or best to use 100% of the time? I think it's kind of like how much do you rely on the assistive technology?
Well, like I said, in the research, there's nothing that says that, let's see, I'm getting glared a little bit. There's nothing that the research says that actually, using text to speech only enhances oral reading fluency and comprehension. So I don't think there's anything bad to it. However, there are some kids who prefer books and paper, and there's some people who prefer holding something. And I think it's, the way I see it, students are the end user. They're students or an adult with dyslexia. And if they're not going to buy in, it's not going to happen. So, we really have to work. One of the things that I always look at is, what is their student preference? Like, are they going to use it? If they're not going to use it, then that's also, a barrier to the accommodation. And they really, we want to make sure that they see the value. If it is helping their reading comprehension, I show them that, hey, look where you were, look where you are now. What are some things that happened? Do you think text to speech helped? There's a lot of that. I personally do all my stuff digitally. I don't use text readers, but I digitally get my books because if it's a paper book, it ends up covered in coffee. So for me, executive function wise, it's easier to have a book stored on my phone than it is, to carry it around. So to each their own in that.
Well, how fortunate we are to be in this digital age, and there are so many tools to support our dyslexic learners and those with learning disabilities. And Katie, thanks so much for taking the time with us today. And we hope to see you again soon and have you back because we have lots more questions, particularly like at parent, what else could we do? But thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.